Does your Valeton GP200 sound like this when you just plug into your real amp, like there is some kind of thick blanket of your speaker? That is because you are just making the #1 mistake with multi-effects units. Much better. Today I'm going to show you the 3 ways to connect your GP200 to a real amp correctly, so you just stop fighting your gear and start sounding like a pro. And if you're just using the smaller GP50 or GP5, don't worry, because the first 2 methods work just for you too. Before we just plug anything in, we need to handle physics. And if you've been following the channel, you know exactly what is coming. But if you're new to the channel, this is the #1 rule. Your GP200 has a cab simulator. Your real amp is a speaker. And for those of you who already know this rule, at the end of the video I'm going to show you the secret sauce setting inside the global menu that even experienced users often forget to check. So here's the physics. If you run a cab sim into a real cab, you are just filtering the sound twice. It kills your high end and it makes everything just sound boxy. For all the methods I'm about to show you, just go into a GP200 chain and turn the cab block off. Right, so the method 1 is very simple. Just plug straight into the front of the amp. This just works for the GP200 and for all of the Valeton line. Since your physical amp has its own preamp, you have 2 choices here. Option 1, double preamp. Keep the amp block on in the Valeton for a specific flavor. And here in this case we are adding the amplifier module from the GP200 that is gonna be adding to the pre on the amplifier, and this is how it sounds. Option 2, Stompbox mode. Turn the amp block off entirely and just use the Valeton for effects like drives and delays. We just connected from the output left mono from the GP200 to the amplifier. On the front of the amplifier, the amp and the cab module are off. We have the pre and the post effects on the same line. Probably don't want to use the reverb and delays in front because it's gonna be a messed up signal unless you want creatively to use like that. Just sound like this. Can use the clean sound and add some distortion. Just make sure your GP200 input volume isn't cranked up to 20 dBs or you'll just clip the amp's input. You just start in the middle, 0 dBs. I will be tweaking settings only on the unit because for this, you will not use the software. On stage, you just want to be changing settings on the go. However, there is a catch, and the sound just gets a little bit colored by your physical amp. If you just want the pure sound of your Valeton models, you need to bypass that preamp entirely. And that just brings us to the method 2. Now let's get cleaner. This is the method 2. Here, instead of the front, we just plug into the effects return of your amplifier. This just completely bypasses your amp preamp section. Your amp just becomes a loud powered speaker. And this means the amp model inside your GP200 is doing 100% of the work. This is my favorite method because the tone stays consistent. If you just practice at home and then go to a gig or a different backline amp, you just plug into the effects return and your core sound is exactly the same. So in the preposition method, we just have the guitar plugged into the input of the GP200, and from the output left, that is mono, from the GP200 to the return effects loop on the back of my amplifier. Don't forget, I just have the amp module on, the cab mode it's off, and this is how it sounds. So in here I have no effects, I have just the amp. Now I'm gonna turn on the reverb and delay. Nothing more, I have the compressor turned on. Here On this amplifier I'm using the JCM 800 and I think it's gonna work well with the orange. Since this method relies on 100% on the Valeton, having a good amp block setting is critical. So I've put together a pack of my live ready presets designed especially for this, not already for the GP200, for the GP50 and GP5. I will come back with some presets for the GP200 soon, so stay tuned because of that. If you have GP5 or GP50, you just have some presets down below. But what if you just actually love the natural distortion of your real physical amp and you just only want the GP200 for effects? Method 2 just kills your real amp's tone. So, to keep the best of both worlds, we just need the advanced setup. Finally, the holy grail, the 4-cable method. This is where the GP200 just really shines over the smaller units because you have dedicated FX loop block. For this, you turn off not only the cap sim, but the amp module too. Here's the signal path. Guitar into Valeton input, Valeton send into amp input, amp send into Valeton return, Valeton output into amp return. Why do this cabling nightmare? Because it lets you put effects where they belong. You can place your Valeton's compressor and drives before your real amp's distortion and put your delays and reverbs after in the loop. I just want to give you an important tip, because if you are using the 4-cable methods on the GP200, you just make sure the FX loop is set to series mode inside the patch settings. By default it can be in parallel mode, which mixes your dry signal with the loop signal and makes it feel like your amp's preamp is being bypassed. Now we have here all the cables connected correctly. We have the settings of the FX loop. I haven't touched anything, so this is probably by default on parallel mode, and I'm gonna play so you can hear how it sounds like by default. So as you can see, this is like a dry signal. No, the amp is not taking effect right now. I have the overdrive channel on my amplifier. It's not coming out because of this. So we are gonna tweak the parallel mode to series mode. When you switch it to series, the full signal passes through your amp properly, so your gain, your EQ and volume behave as expected. So in the patch you press the power knob, you rotate the knob till you get the top menu. Then you just select the last option. And the parallel series, you select the series mode, then you go to the return level, you crank that up, select the next page pressing the power knob, and you do the same thing with the send level, you just crank that up too. And this is how it sounds. Right now what you're hearing is the amp, and we are gonna add the effects from the GP200. So if your amp just sounds weak, dry or disconnected, this setting is the first thing you should check. It gives you the best of both worlds, the real tube tone of your physical amp with studio quality effects from the Valeton wrapped around it. Regardless of which method you just choose, there is still one final enemy that can just ruin your gig. The room. So now I'll just give you the secret sauce setting that I just promised earlier. Real guitar speakers are very mid-focus, right? So if your tone just sounds harsh compared to your headphones, don't change your preset. Go to global EQ. So because this is a guitar, you don't need that low end entirely, so I will just apply a high pass filter cutting everything under the 100 Hz. Then I will apply a cut at 400 Hz, that's where the boominess comes in these cases. And usually the harshness I will cut at 5K. This lets you tune the GP200 to the room without just ruining your saved presets. Alright, so I just want to mention that I will be doing some presets soon for the GP200 in case you're just interested. Stay tuned for that. And don't forget, those presets are linked below. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!